Welcome back to Combat Ready HQ. Big shout out to my viewers, subscribers and all of my channel members. Today we're diving deep into a subject that could define the future of Europe, NATO and the wider world. Russia has tried and failed to break NATO. But what does this really mean? And more importantly, what comes next? We will explore how Moscow's actions in Ukraine have reshaped NATO, why Putin's long game isn't over, and how these tensions could spiral into something much bigger. Stick around because this isn't just about tanks, jets or drones. This is about global power, strategy and survival. Let's start from the beginning. When Russia rolled into Ukraine back in 2022, Putin wasn't just thinking about Kiev. His bigger plan was to split NATO, to create cracks between countries, to make nations like Germany, France, us here in the UK and the US argue over money, weapons, and whether it is even worth defending Ukraine. Because if NATO couldn't hold together, Russia could have more freedom to push west, to intimidate the Baltics, to pressure Poland, to control Europe's energy supply. But what actually happened? Instead of falling apart, NATO has grown stronger. Finland joined, Sweden joined. Countries that had stayed neutral for decades suddenly looked at Russia and said, "No chance, we are siding with NATO." That is a direct failure to Putin's strategy. He wanted NATO weaker, but he got NATO bigger. Now, unity doesn't mean it's been easy. Yes, NATO has pumped billions into Ukraine. We've sent weapons, from HIMARS to Storm Shadows to Leopard tanks. We've now got troops in Poland, Romania and the Baltic states. But the real message is this: NATO has proved it can react fast. When Russian drones stray into NATO airspace, boom. Fighter jets are scrambled. When cyber attacks hit, NATO members share intelligence in real time. The unity is exactly what Russia didn't want. And here's the kicker. NATO is now learning from Russia's probing tactics. Every time Moscow sends a jet closer to NATO airspace, NATO tracks it. Every time they launch drones, NATO logs radar data. It's a chess match. And both sides are learning. Ukraine is the centre of this entire storm. The war has been brutal. Cities have been flattened. Millions displaced. Countless civilians and soldiers have been killed or injured. But Ukraine has done something incredible. It's exposed Russia's weaknesses. Parts of the world thought Russia had this unstoppable army. But what we've seen is poor logistics, outdated equipment and a command structure that struggles when things go wrong. And every day Ukraine fights, NATO learns. Western armies have front row seats to how Russia fights modern war. That is priceless intelligence. But make no mistake, Russia is also learning. They're testing drones, missiles and electronic warfare on a scale they couldn't in peacetime. And you can bet they are writing everything down about NATO's response times. And let's take a quick break. You know we talk about being combat ready, about being switched on physically and mentally. Well, part of that is fueling yourself correctly. That's why we created Combat Ready HQ Coffee. Our blends like Covert Ops or In the Shadows. This keeps you sharp, focused and mission ready. And if you want to grab yourself a deal, with every bag of coffee, you can get a t-shirt half price. The link is in the description. Now let's get back into it. Now let's talk about these constant incursions. Drones, jets, cyber probes into NATO territory. Some people panic. They think this is it, World War III. But actually, this is just intelligence gathering. Russia just wants to know, how fast do NATO jets scramble? How accurate are NATO radars? How do the governments respond? And here's the dangerous part. It's a game. One wrong move, one trigger. One wrong move, one trigger happy pilot. One missile fired. And suddenly we're not talking about probing, we're talking about escalation. So where does this go? Russia has failed to break NATO, but that doesn't mean they're giving up. Instead, they keep looking for weak points. Political division in the US, economic pressure in Europe, cyber attacks on infrastructure, propaganda to fuel division inside Western countries. Meanwhile, NATO has to balance two things: staying united and staying ready. Budgets have to go up, training has to stay sharp, and they have to prepare for every scenario, from a cyber blackout to a fighter jet shootdown. If NATO holds firm, Russia's options get smaller. But if NATO wobbles, even slightly, Russia will exploit it. That's the dangerous stance we're in. And let's not forget the home front. Wars abroad always have consequences at home. Rising fuel prices, refugee crisis, political division. And here in the West, we're already divided. Over borders, culture, leadership, you name it. Russia knows this. They thrive on division. They don't just want to win on the battlefield. They want to break societies from within. They can't defeat NATO military. Maybe they can weaken us politically. So where does that leave us? Russia set out to break NATO. Instead, NATO is stronger. But the danger isn't gone. The war in Ukraine rages on. The probing continues. And the risks of miscalculation are higher than ever. This isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. And here at Combat Ready HQ, we are following every move, analysing every shift, and asking the questions that matter. Are we ready for what comes next? Stay ready, stay sharp, never be beaten, and don't forget to subscribe.